right, awesome 7th grade. We're going to go ahead and start our lesson for today. Just a reminder, every problem on here could be on the quiz. Most of them will be. Maybe some of the challenge ones might not be, but all the review and all the new stuff will definitely be on the quiz. There'll be 10 questions. Make sure that you get it done within 25 minutes because once it's 30 minutes, you can't enter it anymore. And if it's late, you get the standard 50%. So learn this stuff now. Be ready for the quiz next week, and you guys will be doing great. Go ahead and read this problem right now to yourself. Go ahead and pause the video and read it real quick to yourself. So today we are using experimental probability. That means, getting a probability from actually doing the experiment yourself. And it says here, we students are sharing photos, and they ask what photos they shared, right? It says, what's the probability that the student brought a photo taken at a theme park? So if they're asking about theme park photos, that's our desired outcome. So how many people brought theme park photos, right? 11 people bought theme park photos. Now, of course, with all probability, we have to add up total of everything. You guys can take calculators and do that. Or you can kind of see that I have 10, 28, 28. So 11 out of 28 is a probability that is how many people brought theme park photos. Okay, so the probability of that happening was 11 out of 28, or 39%. So next question, how do we use that today? What's new about our lesson, right? This is still probability. We've talked about, I believe in class we talked about experimental probability real quick. So what's new? Well, here's what's new. If you have an experimental probability of 11 out of 28, or 39% of something happening, what if we change the total? How can we use the probability of this sample to figure out how many people, if there was a lot of people, right? We don't want to actually question 560 students. We can randomly take, and it has to be random or else the data won't be accurate, right? You can randomly take people, completely random, and find the probability for that sample and use that to predict what would the probability be for everybody or for a larger group. So if 11 people brought theme park pictures out of 28 total, here's our question now. What if there was 560 students total? How many, theoretically, would bring a theme park picture? And just like most problems we've been doing all year, that's another proportion problem. If 11 brought theme park out of a 28 total, this question is asking us how many, or X, would bring for 560 total, right? Theme park over total equals theme park over total. And like we always do, cross multiply and divide. It's fine if you use your calculators now. So this is one way to do it, right? We can grab our calculators and go 11 times 560, right? Cross multiply and divide is how we can solve all proportional problems. So 11 times 560, right? That's going to give us 6160. So 6,160 is 11 times 60. That will equal, it has to equal to proportional, this times this, right? Means equals extremes. 28 times x there. And to get what x is, to get my missing value, or solve this equation, or find my answer, I would take that. It's already in my calculator, and I can divide that by 28, and I can figure out that it would be about 220 students would bring theme park pictures out of 560 total if 11 out of 28 did the same thing. So there's one way to do it. Now, some of you like to take shortcuts, though. Some of you realize, you know what? Finding 39% of something, of means times. So if I can convert 39% into a decimal, and I'm going to find 0.39 of something, that just means 0.39 times something. So you could have taken your percent, and you could have did 0.39 times the total. What was the total there? 560 times the total there, and we get about the same thing, right? So if you did it that way, why is it not the exact same thing? Why did it get 220 one time and 218 another time? Why do you think that is? Well, if it's 11 out of 28, 11 divided by 28, that's about 39%, isn't it? That's rounded 39. It's really, you know, 39.28571428, percent. It keeps going on. So that's the difference between that. It's because it was rounded. So if you wanted to take that shortcut, you would have to tell yourself, my answer may not be exact if this is rounded, but if it's close enough, right? 218 is pretty close to 220, then that's the one I pick. I wouldn't pick the one that was 320, right? So you guys can do it that way if you'd like also. Okay, so the answer is about 220 students. If you guys got this correctly on your own already, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Otherwise, pause the video, do it again until you get it right. Next problem. You guys pause the video now and try this first part on your own. So what's the probability that a student at the school has a blog? Well, 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10 means 6 over 10. Having a blog is a desired outcome. 10 is the total. 6 divided by 10 is 6/10. Or in other words, there is a 60% chance. 60% of students have a blog at the school. Next question. Pause the video. Do this now. So if it's 60%, how many would that be out of 250? Well, we got two choices here. If 6 have blogs out of 10 total, then how many would that be out of 250? That's one option. Another option, I could have reduced 6/10, right? 2 goes into 6 3 times. 2 goes into 10 5 times. In other words, 6/10 is 3/5. I could have done this also, right? Because 6/10 is 60%, but 3/5 means 3 divided by 5 is also 60%, isn't it? And of course, the other option is to take 0.6 and multiply it by the total 250. No matter how you did it, we should have got the same answer. Let me show you one way. Let me use a multiplication this time. We get 150 students. What if I use one of these proportions here? I go cross multiply 6 times 250, 6 times 250, and then divide by the coefficient, divide by 10. We know that's just moving the decimal one time. We get 150 that way. How about the other one over here? What if I did 3 times 250? And I highly recommend, if you guys are using your calculators, draw this, and on your next step, write this out. I mean, I'm not going to be there to check your work, right? But the reason you guys want to do that is because I can't tell you how many times every year I see someone do this order correctly. In other words, they'll multiply 250 times 5 instead of 250 times 3. So draw your butterfly so you make sure you guys are multiplying the correct numbers to each other and dividing by the correct number. Otherwise, it's hard to get this wrong if you got a calculator, right? Well, so showing those steps right there, cross multiply, multiply these guys here, right? And just to make sure you're doing the right order, just show one or two steps and it'll prevent a lot of mistakes. So hopefully we all got the right answer there. Hopefully got 150. If not, please pause and do it again. You guys always want to get it right before you move on. Take a look at this next problem. What do you guys think? If there's a 60% chance of this happening, what's the likelihood of that happening? And we know that when it's in the middle, it's as likely as not. If it's 100%, it is certain, but in between is likely. So 60% would be, there's a likely chance that that would happen. Okay, that's the likelihood for 60%. I want you guys to pause the video now and try this problem. So, emoticon. What is that? Emoticon? Well, you guys probably figured out that's old people speak for an emoji, right? They were probably called emoticons when it first came out. Now they just call them emojis for short now. Okay, so and now you know where the word emoji came from. 85% of the people use these. So how many if it's 2,450? Well, we have two choices here, right? 85%, anytime you see percent, you could always use percent proportion, right? Percent goes over 100 and is goes over of. So in other words, what is 85% of 24,500? So cross multiply and divide, right? Make sure you multiply 2450 by 85, not by 100, and then divide by 100 after that. Or shortcut, they give us 85%. We want to find 85% of 2450. You can just multiply. Make sure you convert it to a decimal first. Grab your calculator. Okay, and we got 0.85 times 2450. And honestly, if I had no calculator, I'd probably use percent proportion. Everything would come out right. If I had a calculator, I would probably just use the shortcut and use the decimal, convert to decimal. So it looks like we got around 2083. That looks about 85% of 2400, right? So that seems about right. If you've gotten it correct, move on to the next problem. What's the likelihood? Well, 85% is between 50% and 100%, right? 50% over here is as likely as not. 100% over here is certain. In between is likely. That's our likelihood of that happening. Okay, so just reviewing some stuff we learned in class, right, the other day, likelihood. If you're ready, let's move on. Pause the video now. Try this next problem. Every review problem that we do on these videos, on these lessons that you guys have 2 days a week, will be on your quiz the following week. So make sure you're ready to solve an equation where you have your variable in the numerator. So this is a two-step equation. Remember, I taught you to separate your left from your right side with your elevators. Work farthest away from the variable first. Do the inverse operations. The opposite of a positive 9 is a negative 9. So I'll subtract 9 from both sides. If I do it to both sides, it's still equal. That gets rid of this 9. I'm in the process of getting z by itself, or isolating z, because if I isolate z and it says z equals, I know what z is. And that's what solving an equation means, to find the number for the letter that makes this true, or the value for the variable that makes the equation true. So 10 take away 9 is 1. Now I got to get rid of the 5. Z over 5. What do I always say? All fractions are what? That's right, division problems, and the opposite of division is to multiply. So if I multiplied both sides by 5, these ones cross out. 1z is z, and that's my goal. I want to say z equals. I want to isolate the variable. And so z equals 5 is my answer. And what did we just figure out when we said z equals 5? We figured out what number goes here to make this true, right? So if I put a 5 right there, 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 1 plus 9 is 10, because 10 equals 10, and that's the number that makes this true. Let's practice that a few more times before our quiz next week. Next review problem you're going to see on your quiz is to simplify algebraic expressions. Pause the video now. Do this problem on your own before you watch me do it. All right, so let's go ahead and do this problem. How do we simplify expressions? We distribute first, and then we combine like terms. Okay, so distributing is when we multiply more than once. Well, technically we aren't, but it looks like we are. Okay, and we do that when we have a coefficient or a number in front, next to parentheses, and a plus or minus in the inside. That's when we have to distribute. That's when it looks like we're multiplying more than once. So I have 10 plus 5 times 25a. Excuse me, 5 times 5a is 25a. And this is the part you guys can't forget right here, okay? Do not forget this part right here. Okay, don't forget that part right there. Okay, la-dee-da, get that ready. All right, so 5 times 7 is 35. This expression is the same as this down here. They're the same thing. Okay, if I did multiply the 5 times 7, though, it would be a different problem. You'd be changing it. You'd be wrong. So if I add my two constants together, right? What's a constant again? Right, a number, no letter next to it, right? I get 45. So I could have 45 plus 25a. Or if I wanted to put that in descending order, that means put my letters first and my constant second. I get 25a plus 45, and that is our simplified expression. These guys are the same thing, but now it's simplified. If you guys got that correct, let's move on. If not, please do it again until you get it right. Next problem. Pause the video now. Try this. All right, so Emily reduces the size of a frame. So its height went down to 4 inches. So we have a frame. In other words, think of it as a rectangle, right? We have a rectangle, and it's 12 inches by 9 inches. It says she reduced the height to 4 inches. So now it's 4 inches by 9 inches. It says what, oh, actually, I'm sorry, 4 inches by, we don't know, because it's actually going to be proportional. I didn't realize that. I didn't read the question very well. So we reduce the height. We're also going to reduce the width so that it's still proportional. It's still the same shape. So what's going to be the new width now, right? What's the new width if the old one was 4? So what we can do then, again, this is another proportional or proportion question. If I put width over height, that's going to be proportional to or equal to width over height over here also, isn't it? Okay, so for the original, I can put 12-inch. Well, I put width on top. It actually doesn't matter what I put on top. As long as if I put width on top, so it looks like for the original I have 9 goes with 12. Just remember that. This is the original. 9 goes with 12, okay? So if I put width on top over here, okay, what's the new width? We don't know the new width. We'll use W. Now for the old one, the height was 12. Okay, this is the old, this is the new. I have width with width, I have height with height. So if the old width was 9 and the old height was 12, what's the new width if the new height is 4? If this is the same shape, these will be proportional. They'll be fractions equal to each other. I have width on top, width on top. Height on bottom, height on bottom. Now I'm ready to cross multiply. I got 36 equals 12W. And of course we know solving proportions. After we cross multiply, we divide. And then we have 36 divided by, that should be 3 inches. Okay, so we're just solving proportions here. That's our review problem. Here's another review problem that will be on the quiz. Pause the video now, try it. So what percent of 8 inches is 4 inches? Anytime we have a percent problem, we can use percent proportion. Percent goes over 100, and it's is over of, right? Because this is what percent of the total. 100 is total. Okay, so let's read what we have. It looks like we don't have percent this time because they say find percent, right? So that's where my letter goes. When I have percent, I have to put it over 100. When I have percent, where does it go? Over 100, right? But if they don't give me percent and I don't have it, what do I put there? Well, whenever something's missing, we can use a symbol or a letter to represent what's missing, and that's what algebra is. We got missing numbers, missing values, and we find those missing values by moving stuff around using the rules we learned. All right, so 4 is what percent of 8? That's why 4 goes on top this time. Now 4 is not going on top because it's smaller. 4 is going on top because we want to know 4 is what percent of 8, right? Because sometimes the bigger number goes on top. Sometimes the percent is more than 100. Just like we've been doing all year with proportions. Yet another proportion. Cross multiply. 4 times 100 is 400. And 8 times 8x is 8x. And we divide by the coefficient, the number in front of the variable. And I go in and out, 400. Yes, you can grab your calculators, but you know what? It's just about as fast to just do it in your, just to work it out. Work it out. So I got 400 divided by 8. I get an answer of 50. And since I used percent proportion, this is going to give me the percent already, right? There's other ways to do this, But other ways will give you a decimal. You have to remember to convert the decimal to a percent by moving the decimal 2 times to the right. Okay, that problem is done. Let's go ahead and start the next one now. Pause the video, try this. So we're going to find the area of a circle. Area of a circle is how many little squares to fill the whole inside in, right? That's what area of circle means. And the formula is pi r squared. That's area of a circle. So the area, now if we're using calculators that have a pi button, that's fine. Otherwise, we use 3.14, and that's why I'm converting from an equal sign to an approximate symbol, because pi is about 3.14, not exactly. So they give me the radius. Of course, radius is the distance halfway through the circle. It's not all the way through. That would be called what? That would be called diameter, wouldn't it? So I'll go over here, and I have the radius is 8, so pi r squared means times 8 squared. And the area will be about, we can grab our calculators now, clear out our last problem, and we go 8 times pi, and we get about 296 hundredths what? 296 hundredths, I'm sorry, 296 hundredths. So when I rounded that, that actually bumps up. Now here's the thing. Why do I have two answers here? Why do I have round up to 1, right? Wouldn't this round up to 1? See? Round to the nearest tenths, that bumps up, carry the 1 over. Why would I have this as another answer, though? And some of you actually got that. The reason is in your calculator, some of you have, or on your phones even, if you download the right calculator app, you guys will have a button that has a pi symbol in it. And when you hit that pi symbol, what you are doing, instead of getting 3.14 or estimating pi, you're actually using the real pi. The calculator can do that. We can't, right? We can't, but a calculator can. Now, a calculator couldn't show you all the digits. It's impossible physically, but it can actually use the actual pi value. So, pi isn't 3.14, it's 3.1415, blah, 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 right? So if I put in those bigger numbers, you can see I'm going to get closer to what the rest of you had, 64, that's 8 times 8, 64 times 3.1415, I can keep going, and you can see how it keeps getting a tiny bit bigger. So this is what we just learned. And we might have said this before, but just in case I didn't say it in class, when you use the pi button, your answers might be a tiny bit bigger than what you see. So here's the rule. If you're close, you are correct. When it comes to using the symbol pi, if you're close, you are correct. Now, if this said 301, I wouldn't consider that close. That would be wrong. But especially the bigger, as the numbers get bigger and bigger, you know, as long as you're close, not hundreds apart or thousands apart, then you're correct. Okay, so that's why if I had 201.1 and I saw 201 and none of the answers were even close to 201, I would pick that one. And that would just means that I used my pi button instead of 3.14. So both of these answers are correct. Close is good enough when it comes to pi. All right, our last review problem that you will see on the next test. Go ahead and pause the video and try this now. So we have the volume here, and this is a rectangular prism. And the volume for all prisms is to find the area of the base or the bottom and multiply it by the height. And the height is the perpendicular distance between the two bases, right? Just like well, we'll talk about that in 8th grade cylinder. So we're going to go ahead and find the volume. And volume of all rectangular prisms are length times width times height, because the base is a rectangle. And the area of a rectangle is length times width, and then multiplied by the height. Now, some of you might see this differently. Some of you might see down here, this is the base. Whoops, this rectangle down here at the bottom. And it's always hard to write with this tablet because I can't see where I'm writing. I have to look off to the side and write off to the side. So you might consider this the base and this the height. And guess what? If you do that, you're correct. we're going to get the same answer either way. So let's go ahead and do that now. Uh, I'll use this times this. 4 times 5 is 20, times the height, which is 11. Not sure if you remember the shortcut for multiplying by 11s. If you're multiplying a two-digit number by 11, you split the numbers, add these two together, and that's how you get your product. So I'm putting about still, aren't I? Because I'm thinking of circles. It should be exactly 220. And our answer is 220 kilometers cubed, because volume means a space in the inside, and it's measured by little cubes to fill it in. Okay. Now, I want you guys to keep in mind for your quiz, there's a hint here, because I have a few different versions of the quiz. You don't know which version you're going to get. If the base, like, was a triangle, so let's say I had a triangle here, okay, and a triangle over here. I'll just go ahead and duplicate this. And then this is still a prism. That means I still have two parallel shapes that are the exact same. So it's kind of like this one up here, but instead of having rectangles here, I have a triangle here and a triangle here, okay? So this is still the same thing. You're still going area of the base. And in this case, when you got two triangles, the bases are the triangles, not these rectangles, okay? Why? Because these rectangles aren't parallel to each other. The triangles are. The bases have to be parallel to each other and congruent. So if it looks like this up here, but there's triangles on the bottom, you're going to find the area of the triangle, which is 1/2 base times height, right? It's not just base times height, or for a rectangle, length times width. That's the same as base times height, right? It's that, and then you have to divide by 2, and then multiply it by the height. Okay, so just remember, know this formula for the quiz. Memorize that. A triangle is 1/2 base times height. Okay, a regular rectangle, length times width, which you can call base times height, but I want you to confuse that with the height of the whole thing. So be ready for that for your quiz. All right, let's know all these questions for our next quiz. Hope you guys do well. We will see you soon.